Welcome, everybody, to the Raad Life, the only talk radio show that takes you along with host and age explorer Raad on his continuing journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older. The Raad Life is brought to you this week by Your Home for a Lifetime, a company dedicated to empowering you to stay safely, independently, and comfortably in your own home. And now here is your host, Raad.
Paul?
Yes.
Are you there?
I'm here, and I can't believe the quality of guests you're suddenly getting here.
Suddenly. Wow. And here I was going to give you like all kind of kudos as we officially celebrate 3 years of being on the air.
You're kidding. Has it been that long?
Yeah.
Seems like only yesterday.
In a good way, but when it comes to you, maybe okay, in a good way, in a good way too.
It's been
I was going to give you all kinds of kudos. You know, I mean, I walked in here, a person who didn't know one side of the mic from the other, right?
And you have brought
no, not the mic. That's our guest, but just the other thing. But any side of the mic from the other, and I basically, walked in here not knowing what the heck I was doing, and you were like, "Okay, good."
Yeah.
Young, impressionable minds to shape.
Well, I don't know about young, but yeah.
I was young until I started doing the show.
You're still young.
Still young.
Thanks, Mike.
All right.
But I can't believe it's been 3 years. Can you believe it's been 3 years?
I can't believe it's been 3 years, and I can't believe how the county has changed in 3 years. I know you're going to talk about it extensively here today. We had several years ago when we first started the what do they call them? The register here, the county registrar.
That we forgot what it was.
We
called.
can't even remember what the title's
The
called.
register.
And really nice
Newspaper
guy.
for
Neil.
those.
Is it Neil Kelly? I think
Yep,
he's the
yep,
local registrar. And really cool guy. And I didn't realize at that time. This is 3-4 years ago. That Orange County is not a Republican county anymore. It's not a Democratic county.
Don't give away the show.
It is a refuse to state, decline to state, pox on both parties. I don't know what the hell I am anymore.
You know what's fascinating, Mike? You'll find this probably fascinating. I spend way too many hours on Facebook, and my wife will tell you that I need some help and therapy, but. At least an intervention once in a while, but yes.
This is your intervention.
No, this started out being my intervention, then became Paul Roberts' therapy session.
Well,
right?
that's
basically
true. It's a chance for me to unload
on a weekly basis,
rants and raves.
But here's the thing, I actually encountered a conversation that I will just say was happening on the GOP side. Okay, of the
you mean the
audience on Facebook.
You mean the gone old party?
No, be nice, okay. But what was interesting is somebody had shown a graph, and it was based on 2016 numbers, right? And it showed that the difference between Republican registered voters and Democrat registered voters in Orange County, the bastion of supposed Republican, stronghold, was 2.9%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it'll be gone altogether by 2020.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the funny thing is, in that whole conversation, until I brought it in, because I just tend to be that kind of a person, okay, I just want to like poke the bear every once in a while, is there was no mention about the independent. And yet on the graph that they were basically using, it was right there, as bold as anything, right? It was over 20-some%, right?
So you're saying the news story isn't just the decline of the GOP voters, it's the rise of the independent voters.
Because truly, and I don't know, Mike, if you could speak to this, okay, I mean, with all candid honesty, I don't know that the parties themselves have grown per se. There maybe have been a little bit of growth on the Democratic side, but there's been an attrition like crazy on the Republican side to that independent voter, which is an interesting thing because that voter may be left-leaning, maybe right-leaning, but is not party affiliated. And so that makes for an interesting, I think, campaigning.
How are
you going to appeal to that person?
Well, I ran the Democratic Party of Orange County back in 2006 and 2007.
And could we identify who this is? We haven't identified your guest, Steve.
Yes, Mike, introduce yourself, please.
I'm Mike Levin. I'm running for Congress in the district currently held by Darrell Issa, who's retiring after too many years in the House of Representatives.
2003, I think, right?
2000.
2000?
Is that applause? I hear an applause sound
what,
effect. I don't know.
What are you applauding exactly?
I don't know
over
if
there?
my Twitter followers can hear there was an applause.
There's a little applause, spontaneous applause that just popped up.
That's quite all right. But by background, I'm an environmental attorney. I'm a clean energy advocate. Yeah. But years and years ago, I actually did run the Democratic Party of Orange County.
And you're a local.
I am a local.
Yeah.
I was raised in South County. And I went to public schools there and ultimately went off to Stanford for college and then to Duke for law school. and
And he
decided
accuses me of name
Great
dropping.
schools. Oh, great
and
schools.
I thank you. I came back 2005, and I'm raising my family now. Have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and we love it here. And it's, I think, an amazing place to live. One of the downsides has been that Darrell Ice has been our congressperson for too long, and you know that, living in San Clemente with your family
I've
there,
been in South County since '87,
which is amazing.
You're just for full disclosure, you live where?
San Juan Capistrano.
Right, so you're down local, right in the middle of it.
Yeah, and our district runs from Dana Point,
Uh-huh.
has San Clemente, has San Juan Capistrano, Ladera Ranch, Rancho Mission Viejo. We have an office in San Clemente for the South Orange County portion of the district. And then we've got all of North County, San Diego. So we've got Oceanside, Vista, Carlsbad,
Camp Pendleton.
Encinitas. We do, exactly, right in the middle, all the way down to UC San Diego. And
Wow,
I'm
really, that far
thrilled.
south?
Yep, and so I put a lot of miles on our zero-emission car, driving all up and down the 5
Love it,
and all
love it.
throughout the communities. There are 10 cities
Yeah.
in the district, and, you know, Darrell Ice has been our representative,
Right.
if you can call him that, since 2000.
Right.
He didn't come up this way. He really spent most of his time in northern San Diego, which is where his office was, where he really established his base. And when the district was expanded into South Orange County, I never really saw him too much.
Well,
So-
I
but that-
never,
but
I
that
never
changed-
saw him too much unless I turned on Fox and Friends.
We got to get you to talk into the mic, though.
So, but let me ask you this though, okay?
He was on Fox and Friends a lot.
and maybe but you saw more of him
Yeah.
in South County, or in Orange County, more recently, and maybe this is a good segue to what Paul started us off on, because if you, I know you know, I've been talking about the changing face of Orange County since that report with the same name came out.
Sure.
Right, and it was 2005, 2006, right?
Yeah.
And it talked about emerging minorities, and it talked about all this stuff. And I remember going to a reading of that report when it basically was announced, and it was shared. I think it was UCLA and what was the other entity? There was another like academic entity that was involved, but they basically put this report together, and it talked about emerging minorities in like Santa Ana. It talked about emerging minorities in like Little Arabia and Anaheim. It also talked about the whole county.
Yep.
And the changing face of Orange County. And I found it fascinating. Not a lot of attention was paid to it during the presentation, but it was right there, black and white, if you read between the lines, which is that South County was an interesting situation altogether. You had minorities that had been there 3-4 generations. You had people that were not challenged by things that are emerging minority specific, such as funding and resources and academic levels. Here was an area of the county where you had immigrants and people of ethnic background that actually were well heeled, had high levels of education, could basically be very engaged and involved politically, and yet maybe that's where their innocence was, that they didn't have the nuances of engagement in the political process.
Are we talking about you, Rod?
No, I'm talking. Well, in a way, yes. But you have Syrians, you have Persians, you have Indians, you have people of different ethnicities in South County, which is fascinating to me.
On my street in San Juan Capistrano, we live in a little community called Pacifica. There are over 20 countries of origin for all those folks just on my street.
So much for lack of diversity, right?
Well, we have incredible diversity.
Yeah.
And actually, in the 49th Congressional District, Asian Americans are the quickest growing demographic group.
Understandably, yeah.
Latinos make up about a quarter of the district. So it's, I think, changing pretty dramatically from when I grew up.
Let's take a minute and talk about that, because I think underlying everything that you're basically going to be involved in here is you have this constituency that is this diverse, right? And actually, we have a caller, Paul.
One of the things to show you what Mike has changed just by his appearance today here is we're actually getting callers in today to the show. You're always complaining that
Applause,
people will...
please. Can we get an applause, please?
Because it's on Twitter, anything is possible. These could be, like, literally anything is possible with
Thank you
people
for
on
being
Twitter.
here,
Could be
Mike. We
anybody.
actually get a call.
Well, this woman called
let's
in.
not put him on hold. Come on.
She said she wants to ask what she hopes is her future congressman a question. So identify
Anything.
yourself and welcome to the show.
Hi, my name is Tori, and I live in North County, San Diego.
Hi, Tori. How are you?
Good. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing terrific. How did you see us on Twitter?
Yes, and you follow my Twitter.
I love it. I try to follow back everybody. You know, we have about, 75,000 people
Wow.
on Mike Levin, at Mike Levin CA. So if you're listening and you want to follow, and, certainly if you're in the district, I'm going to follow you back.
Give the website too, Mike.
MikeLevin.org.
Okay.
Okay, so
Go
what do you
ahead,
want to
Tori.
ask
Sorry
Mike
about
Levin? You're hoped for a future congressperson here. Ask him a tough question. Give him a tough one there today. No softballs today.
What is your take on the border wall, 1, immigration, 2, and what is your selling point to young people like me, young people
Perfect.
who voted for Obama, who got him in? What is your key point to be like, okay, I'm the one?
And before he answers, can I just get a little, you don't have to give us your name, Tori, but you live in North County. Roughly how old are you? You're in your 20s? You're in your 30s? How old are you?
Late 20s.
Late 20s, okay. And you were part of this energized movement that sprang up, got Obama into office. Did you vote for Bernie? Did you vote for Hillary?
2016, I voted for Bernie first time.
That's what I assumed, yeah, right.
I was going to go to the extreme and vote for the orange in office, but I was like, no.
I have no idea who you're talking about, Tori, by the way.
The person who has the Twitter account, the one who sends
Yes.
me tweets.
Yeah, right.
Are you following him, Mike?
Yes.
So you're looking for, you want to see, you're somehow part of this youthful group that wants to be engaged, doesn't like the way things are going, wants to see passion, wants to see something.
1,000,000%.
Yes, okay. Thank you. I'm going to cut you off there, and thank you for...
No, hold on.
Oh, no,
a second,
we're
hold
going to leave her on?
Tor-
Okay.
Tor- no, yeah. First of all, Tori, great questions.
Millions of people trying to call.
Anytime you want to co-host, you just let me know. Secondly,
Wow.
I want to...
Mike for president.
Mike for president.
Wow.
Wow, she's got you on the next campaign.
I haven't even answered the question yet.
Yeah, exactly. You might not like the answer.
I have a question for you, Tori, if I may.
Of course.
Curious as what would have made you consider voting for Agent Orange?
Agent Orange. As a Democrat, I didn't like Hillary because she had the super PAC, and Bernie was the only one who didn't.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
you know, the host of our show, Rod, and I used to debate because we went round and round about this. He was a passionate Bernie follower. And I said, Bernie's I like what the guy's doing, but he was too far out. Nobody would elect somebody that far out of the mainstream. Boy, was I wrong. Was it just given the choices that you had, you just felt strongly enough not to want to vote for the Democratic candidate once the primaries were over and we had two names and you were considered? I won't even ask you who you ended up voting for, but it's interesting that you would
voted for Hillary.
Okay, yeah, it was interesting that you would consider even long enough to look at that.
A lot of Bernie voters did the same thing. A lot of Bernie voters switched over to Trump when they were dissatisfied with Hillary.
On those quote-unquote Bernie voters.
Yeah, so
they're the reason we have this person in the Orange House for right now.
Right. Did you feel let down by the party when Bernie did not get the nomination?
You're talking about yourself now again, Rod.
And no. Because Hillary's Bill's husband, I was born in 90. I'm going to reveal my age.
Okay.
I wasn't around during the Clinton administration.
Mm-hmm.
However, as a woman, I wanted to see the first woman president.
Sure.
So that's why.
And I appreciate your candid. I was and am very fond of Bernie, and I was a big supporter. And I'm curious because I don't get a chance a lot,
to meet other
I'm in Orange County. I don't get a chance. No, I'm being facetious. I don't get a chance a lot to basically ask. So I really appreciate your candor for this. And Mike, if you'll answer.
Yeah. So obviously.
And my mom and
go ahead.
I have proudly endorsed you.
Oh, thank you. Excellent.
I think you pushed him over the top. I think
I
think you and your mom pushed him over the top. Or something.
Well,
it's funny though, because my dad's friends with Doug Applegate, and I was like, oh my, I can't. No, I can't. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be one of those young people to get a young, unknown candidate in.
So there's that appeal, right? I mean, that's part of why what appeals to you with Mike is that we need it. It's time for a change. We want that fresh blood. Okay, yeah.
So let's talk about immigration for a minute. I don't know if you know this story, but my mom's parents, my grandparents on my mom's side, came from Mexico when they were very young. My grandpa was 11 years old, came from Sinaloa. My grandma was 3 years old and came from Durango. And they didn't have a lot of money, didn't have any money, didn't have really any formal education at all or even speak English, but they worked incredibly hard, and they believed very strongly that if they got to this country, that there would be opportunities presented if they continued the hard work. And that's what they did. They wound up starting a small business. My grandpa and his two brothers started a jukebox rental business. If you remember the Wurlitzer jukebox.
Right. And what year roughly was this? What do you
This
know?
would have been in, well, they started the business would have been in the 30s and 40s. And on into the 50s, you know, is when they did pretty well.
Can I
with
stop
it.
you for just one second, because this is a point I don't think gets made very often. When your grandfather was a grandfather, right? When he came over from
Both of them.
Mexico,
My grandma
was there any sort of quota? I mean, was there a limit on how, or did you just come across the border and welcome, you're an American?
Well, I think, you know,
as I remember, what, the 20s and the 60s.
Yeah, this is after the Mexican Revolution. I think, you know, it was far different than today. I just met with a young man named Irving Hernandez. We got together 2 nights ago in San Diego. He came when he was 6 years old from Mexico. Graduated top of his class from high school, went to San Diego State, studied to become an aerospace engineer.
Right.
And he's set to have his DACA status removed in August. He'll be vulnerable to deportation. So I told you the story about my grandparents just because it absolutely is resonating with me to hear the stories of so many dreamers today, because my grandparents were the dreamers of their day.
Sure.
And I think what made this country strong in the first place was and is appreciation for one another, regardless of national origin or any of our differences, whether they be religion or gender identity. I think that's what makes us strong in the first place.
The Statue of Liberty says, give me your poor, you're tired, your huddled masses yearning to be free. Doesn't say give me the brightest and the best and the richest or whatever.
Jason Miller said that was added after.
Oh,
yeah, it was added after. But what we need is we have to stand in, I believe, fierce opposition to this wall, which is nothing more than a $25 billion monument to Trump's ego, and entirely unnecessary from a border security perspective. We also need to reverse course, and we can't have the militarization of our communities. This is simply wrong, and the stories that you hear are heartbreaking, and I'll do everything I can, if I'm so honored to serve, to stand for common sense immigration reform, not only for the dreamers. There are, you know, a couple 100,000 dreamers, obviously, but for all 11 million who are here, who contribute to our society, to our economy, and our culture. And the young man that I met, as I mentioned a couple of nights ago, he's every bit as American as I am, or as you are, Tori, and we owe him far more as a society than to, you know, have him live in fear after everything he's contributed.
Especially if he actually took the risk of actually registering. Okay.
Yeah.
To me, that is the absolute most shameful thing. Is that you basically it's not just a promise. It's a breach of contract, a verbal contract. We made a verbal contract with these people that
he did it 5 years ago, Red. 5 years ago when he came forward.
But versus being in the shadows.
Yep.
And with that being said, to then turn around and breach that contract with him, okay, is unconscionable. If you do that in that particular case with a vulnerable population, sorry, but I have no trust in the fact that you will uphold any contract or promise you ever make.
So last question, and let Tori go. We live in a tribal...
You didn't know you were going to get interviewed,
Yeah,
Tori.
we live in a... but I'm fascinated because we live in a tribal society now here, I'm sorry to say. We don't see what binds us, we see what tears us apart here.
Yeah.
So what ethnic tribe are you supposed to belong to? What ethnic background are you?
I'm a Caucasian. So
Okay.
I have another question for Mike, being a San Diegan.
You bet.
What are you gonna do? What are you promising to San Diego? I know that Hillary was endorsed by Orange County. What are you trying to do for Northern San Diego? What is if elected, what are you going to do for San Diego?
And can I say that's a good question, because one of the things, I don't know if you heard the beginning of this, we all live in, Rad and I both live in South Orange County, which up until recently was not part of the district. And when they redistrict and do this, suddenly Darrell Issa became our congressperson up here. One of the things we objected to, in addition, I think, to his politics was, I don't think it reflected the region anymore, was that he really was more, in our opinion, based more in San Diego and didn't appear much in South Orange County. And I'm sure you're concerned the opposite, that Mike lives in South Orange County. Is he going to ignore Northern San Diego?
And Mike, before you answer that, if you would add to your answer, because I think Tori did ask it earlier, is like, what are you going to do for somebody that is in her generation, that people, and you and I talked a little bit about this before. Like,
Yeah.
like we have a duality in the district where you have a lot of older people that are living in their homes. They've been in them for 30 years. They're still healthy and living there. People like Paul.
Rapidly aging community.
And then you have
here.
this youth component in the community, starting families and so forth. That, it's just very expensive. Where's the work opportunities? What are we looking forward to actually providing for them?
How do we keep
so
them
if you
here?
can incorporate that in your question.
Yeah. So first of all, for the last year, I've spent most of my time in North County. We have an office in Vista.
Yeah.
Basically, I sleep in South Orange County, but for all intents and purposes, I'm in North County, 6 days a week, 7 days a week when I'm in town. Or if I'm off in D.C., if I have the honor to serve, I know that I have to represent the 75% of constituents that are in North County, San Diego.
Sure.
In addition, I can't forget about the 25% that are in South Orange County. And we have so many friends in all of those cities that I look forward to building really strong partnerships with. I was stunned. We talked about Isa living in North County. I would say he lived in D.C. He completely ignored North County, San Diego, just as he ignored South Orange County. And the friends that I have in North County, many of whom are elected officials, have only seen the guy a handful of times over 16 or 17 years.
Well, you could see him on Fox News every week. So
well, if you want, exactly. If you wanted to see Isa, you turn on
Fake
Fox.
news.
And I think at the end of the day, people want somebody who's going to listen and who's going to represent their interests in the local communities and work with local government on bringing whatever federal resources can be brought to bear to help solve local concerns. One of those, obviously, we have a problem throughout San Diego County with homelessness, but over 2,000 of the 9,000 homeless in San Diego County are in our district.
Oh, wow.
Including a lot of folks in Oceanside and elsewhere that have just returned in many cases from service.
Sure.
In some cases, they'll be addicted to substances or they'll have mental health concerns. And unfortunately, a lot of folks are treated as second-class citizens if they are addicted to substances other than alcohol. They could receive an other than honorable discharge, and they're not able to get the same sort of transition services, the same sort of addiction recovery services or job training or placement that honorable discharges get.
It wasn't that long ago when you couldn't even get you couldn't even admit that you had PTSD and basically receive support.
We got to let Tori go here.
Thank you,
So,
Tori.
Tori,
One last question for you, because we don't get many on the phone here. What do
and
you?
I do want to talk about millennials.
Oh, yes. Oh, sorry.
I don't want to lose that.
and-
So
Hold on a second.
Answer
Paul.
that, and then we'll have one more question. We'll let you go, Tori.
So
Okay.
what I would tell you is that I am from a young family. My wife and I have 2 young children. And if you want to hire somebody to Congress that's going to represent the interests of younger people, particularly those with working families, really, working like everybody else with health care and child care and having a mortgage and having student loans, that's our lived experience. That's our lived experience right now today. And what I would say to those that are a little younger that are thinking of settling, I hope settling in our district, I would hope that you'd want somebody that could not be that far removed from that experience. And I'm so encouraged by all of the young people we have working in our office right now. If you went to our offices, either in Vista or in San Clemente, right now, it's noon on a Wednesday, you will see people that are 18, 19, 20 years old that are making phone calls for us right now, today. Just the same, every Wednesday evening, we've got a phone bank of students at UC San Diego who are making calls to other millennials. And I think for the first time, a lot of millennials are really becoming civically engaged, because it was very easy with President Obama in office to kind of say, Obama's doing a good job, things are okay. We've evolved as a society. We're more appreciative and accepting of one another. We try to be moral and decent, and we try to have compassion for one another. And then last November, you have Donald Trump elected president. And he ran on a very divisive platform in many ways, trying to score short-term political points by dividing people or by creating fear between different people. And I think that a lot of folks, particularly millennials, have woken up, and they've said, this is not the country that I know. This is not the country that I want to help create. We have to defend our democratic institutions. We have to defend the free press. We have to defend the First Amendment. If we fail to do that, we have to recognize that our democracy is a vulnerable thing and a precious thing. And it's on us as future leaders of this country to make sure that we uphold the institutions that made this such a great democratic experiment 240 years ago.
Well, I said all the time. First of all, Tori, thank you so much for calling. I
Yeah,
think your
exactly.
questions were fantastic.
And my only question is, what makes you passionate about Mike? Why are you passionate about Mike?
How he's reaching out to the young people. I mean, Doug Applegate, when I went to the debate, he was just hanging out with his people, and everyone that went up to Mike, he was warm and just like Obama, chill man. And I can't wait for him to be our congressman.
Well, thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Tori.
I can't wait for some more phone calls in like this. So if anybody wants to call in, 949-330-7761 or 949-330-7762 if you can't get. Thank you so much, Tori, for taking the time.
I think
Thank you.
Thank you, Tori. I think it's interesting how the last thing that Tori said is we are in such a divisive time, right? But when we talk about defending the Constitution, we talk about democracy, we talk about freedom of the press, we talk about all those institutions that are critical, that are under attack. The worst thing we could do is polarize, which seems to be at the current moment where we tend to fall into. And I don't know whether it's just because our back's against the wall, like you have both parties sort of polarized, okay? And yet we all know from our own personal lives that the solutions is never going to be from those positions. The solution is the reach across, the common ground, the things that unite us versus divide us, right? So to you, Mike, where do you see those opportunities? Where do you see that ground? I mean, obviously things like our democracy, our freedom of speech, all this stuff, this is not partisan. This should not be weaponized in any form or politically, because we all lose in the end when we do that.
So I think one of the great reasons for the hyper-partisanship that we see in Washington is the campaign finance system. The nature of how we fund our elections. It leads to unnecessary partisanship. I think that if there were more people who didn't rely on big corporate contributions, you talked about Senator Sanders. Senator Sanders had 8 million contributions. Now, not everybody can do that, $27 at a time.
Which definitely showed an opportunity that it is
But
possible.
there's incredible power
Yeah.
in that. And I'm proud of the fact that our campaign has received over 12,000 contributions, which is a lot for a congressional campaign, one of the most in any district anywhere across the country. So we've raised about $1.25 million, which you need to do to be able to communicate a message in 2 major media markets, San Diego and Orange County as part of the Los Angeles media market. You need to raise money. But if you were to raise that same money from big corporate PACs, which is the way Darrell Issa does it, which is the way these Republicans running to take his seat are going to try to do it, which is the way so many Republicans up and down our state and throughout the country, that's how they fund their campaigns. Over half the money coming from big oil, big pharmaceutical companies, big telecom companies. And then you wonder why they vote the way they do every time in lockstep with one another. It's because they get all of their campaign funding or a significant chunk of their campaign funding from those sources. I've gone in the opposite direction. I've said no corporate PAC money for my campaign. There were folks on the Democratic side that said I was crazy for doing that.
I can hear him saying it.
Why would you preclude the opportunity to go and raise corporate PAC money? Now, obviously, not all corporations are the same.
Nor are we vilifying all corporations. I mean,
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. However, I think the impact or the disproportionate impact of big corporations on our campaign finance system, which was exacerbated by the Citizens United decision and by the McCutcheon decision, 2 important Supreme Court decisions, have fundamentally undermined our public discourse. And I think the only way we take it back is to change that system. I think that would be a huge thing to do. Now, one idea that Congressman Ro Khanna has been promoting lately, which I like a lot, is the idea of democracy dollars. So everybody would have $100. If you're a taxpayer, you'd have $100. You could distribute it to whoever you like across the country, and it would be on us as candidates to either take those democracy dollars or not. And if we didn't take them, they'd probably know, where we really stood. I believe so strongly that this is not a plutocracy. This is not government by the wealthy, nor should it be. Nor is it government by big corporations. I think we, the people, have to take it back, and I think we do that by democratizing the campaign finance system.
So I know I don't want to run out of time before we talk about this, because this is very specific to,
Got about 7 minutes left.
to areas where you and I live, right? And it's in a way, I think it will trickle down to San Diego County. Okay. In fact, Torrey is probably an example of one of these questions. Two things: toll road.
Uh-oh, it's a toll road alert.
Through San Clemente, okay. You behave yourself and sit in your corner, okay. You asked your questions. Now
Rod rants about the toll road all the time.
Okay, toll road through San Clemente, the Transportation the Transportation Corridor Authority as a joint powers agency, okay. Timely, outlived its purpose, all of this stuff, right? And the thing that really I think is critical for the future of the county is, what do we do to get it across that the policies need to change to where we take into consideration the aging nature of the county, especially South County, and the fact that these are healthier people that are living in their homes are not translating over, where the tax dollars are staying at relatively the old prices versus what the market would carry. And how do we keep the youth that are now basically, it's too expensive for them and are basically moving out of the desert? Ironically, over 10 years ago, it was the seniors that were moving out of the desert. Now it's the young of these communities, that are future leadership of these communities.
We're going to be one big leisure world if we're not careful.
Right. Well, we are kind of, and that's why we changed the word to Laguna Woods instead of Leisure World. Kept the initials, but we changed the name. Right. But what do you see there, Mike? Because you're right in the middle of it. I mean, you got young kids.
Yeah, let's talk about the toll road for a minute. So, I've come out very strongly in opposition to any toll road extension through any of our South County communities, either extension of the 241 or the 73. And I just don't feel that it's necessary for a whole host of reasons. The best mitigating impact that it would provide might be 6 or 7% if you're lucky. And when there was a settlement with Surfrider and with other major environmental organizations to protect and preserve open space, which I felt was absolutely vital.
Open space that was donated as part of an environmental settlement before. It was mitigation before for development they did somewhere else, and now they're saying, oh, like we did to the Indians a million years ago. Sorry, we want that land back now here.
Well, the remaining routes, so if you exclude the opportunity to go through protected open space, which I absolutely
San Mateo watershed, South.
It's a non-starter. Right. I mean, I've fought for the environment my entire career. It's a non-starter.
For all of us.
So where is left? Well, communities that are already more urbanized or have more infrastructure, and there's no good alternative. So you have one of the options, which would go straight down Avenida Pico in San Clemente.
Horrible.
There's just
right
no
by
way.
The high school.
I just met with some community leaders there the other day. In fact, I'll be going to the TCA tomorrow morning to be speaking about this. There's no way that that's a viable option. You cannot destroy communities. You cannot destroy neighborhoods in a manner that profound.
They would have to take eminent domain, right, to get access to the
They would have to create
land?
mass disruption to our pre-existing communities, our schools. There's just no way. The other routes are no better. One would go right behind my neighborhood in San Juan Capistrano, along Camino Las Ramblas. Another, called the Beltway option, would be going straight behind other communities in San Juan Capistrano. There's no good alternative. What we need instead, and I'm all for the jobs that it would create, and I want to create those jobs for good working folks, just not with those particular proposals.
So before we leave that topic, what do you say to the people in North San Diego County? Why should they be concerned about this or even care?
Well, what's interesting is the reason for the extension is so that developers up in Irvine and elsewhere can tell residents that they can drive to San Diego. And there are some in San Diego that would love an easier way to get to and from. But we cannot damage our communities to that extent in order to achieve that marginal benefit.
Well, and from what I understand, the intention is if you run those toll roads through San Clemente and drop them on the 5, there's nothing that would stop those toll roads from being run all the way to the border.
Well, that could be as well. That's absolutely right. And here's the reality.
I mean, there's a whole buildup in Carlsbad of traffic, right? I mean,
no question.
What's the next argument? That's the way to relieve the traffic.
And we have to figure out ways to alleviate that traffic that does not include building bigger roads. Or we need to be smarter. Exactly right. And we want to put people to work, but we want to do so in a sustainable and responsible way. If the bond indebtedness of the current toll road did not exist, And if the TCA did not exist, and if there weren't PR firms and lawyers and lobbyists that were making money off the continued
While the
development,
bonds are not being paid off.
we would not be having a discussion about the need for a toll road.
Correct.
And that's what I think everybody needs to realize as we move forward, is that this is a solution looking for a problem. And there are so many better ways to mitigate our traffic congestion that do not include destroying our local communities.
Mike, I want you to come. We've got a couple of minutes, but I want you to come back and I want to really talk about that specifically because I think it's countywide impact. I mean, I don't think it's only solely South County when it comes to that particular agency, because there's representatives from everywhere in the county on that agency.
Yep.
Right. So I really would love to invite you back to do that. I think a lot of people in South County would appreciate that conversation. What about how do we keep the youth in town?
In 2 minutes.
South County? Well,
You got
just,
2
just,
minutes.
just get us started. Yeah.
I worry a lot about keeping youth, in our communities. Also, just generally, the working class.
Yeah.
There are people that are really struggling in our district.
Yeah.
Because I've gone around, I've met people that are one hospital bill or emergency room visit away from having to move,
Financial
from
catastrophe,
losing
yeah.
everything, buried in student loan debt or in high interest credit card debt. Can't afford $1,500 or $2,000 for a one bedroom or a studio apartment, much less the down
Yep.
payment for a $700,000 or $800,000 home, which is the median price for a home in our district, around $711,000.
Guy came in to take over the San Clemente Times, Eric Hines. I remember when he moved into town. He was struggling to find a place that he could afford.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah. Well, I think a number of things. We've got to fight for working people again. And I think in our district it means good working class jobs that, unfortunately, automation in our aerospace and defense industry are also, the automation is also helping to erode those jobs. So ways that we can begin to take it back are those emerging growth industries like the clean energy industry that I've been involved in my entire professional career. Figuring out, how do we inspire and motivate that entrepreneurial class of the future to create the great clean energy companies that are going to help us with that sustainability revolution that we need.
Provide the support infrastructure.
Exactly.
Identify and encourage.
And we need infrastructure. We've got to build infrastructure, but we've got to do so in a way that actually protects working people and ensures good wages, fair working conditions, and people can retire with benefits and have health insurance along the way.
Quality of life.
Absolutely right.
Mike, thank you so much. Paul is signaling me. But,
Thank you.
I really do want you to come by. This is going to be a race. So come on back and let's
do it again.
Let's talk a little bit more.
You got it.
I appreciate you making the time. I know you're a busy guy.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Give us the website again.
MikeLevin.org. And thanks to everybody on Twitter. If you're still watching, appreciate it.
Yeah, and drop us any questions you want. We can reach out to Mike, but we want to hear about you. Are you interested in this kind of a show? I think this is very important. You can't, I'm not going to be interested in politics. It affects every aspect of our life, and the people who represent us need to represent us, and we need to talk to them and be reachable to them as well as asking them to be reachable for us. So,
and it represents the future, and this show is all about the future of
we talk about
aging society, the future of what impacts.
It's a journey of aging, and that's every part of your life, at every stage of your life, because at the end of the day, what we want is to make sure that there's a quality of life for everybody.
Continue the quality that's so important to us here.
So
all right,
thank you, Mike,
coming.
again.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
You have been listening to the Raad Life radio show with your host and age explorer, Rad Gantos, brought to you on the one and only octalkradio.net. Join us again next week as we continue our journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older.